dear students. I am Dr. Shikha Pandey, Associate Professor from Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So today in this lecture series of solid waste subjective, today we will discuss about the hazardous waste. Like first of all, we'll discuss about the hazardous waste and why this rules has been made on this hazardous waste and which type of waste is called as hazardous waste. So before we start discussed about this hazard waste is like some waste are organic in nature, so they will send this type of waste to the landfill. Some went for the aerobic process or anaerobic digestion process, but some waste are classified as hazardous waste. So for this hazardous waste, first it will be regulated in 1989. In the year 1989, one rules has been made on the hazardous waste to its management and handling rules. Then subsequently it were amended in the year 2008 to incorporate the Basel Convention. That Basel Convention is there. This Basel Convention has made rule on this hazardous waste. Then this hazardous waste has been discussed and why this waste is so much concerned about this waste, and this waste cannot be treated just like the normal waste. That's so after this Basel Convention and after this hazardous waste management and handling rules, this has been made. And with this type of waste, we have added some more features how to treat this hazardous waste and which type of method should be adopted for the treatment of this waste. So many agencies in India are there which whoever are responsible for the treatment of hazardous waste and to make the rules on a hazardous waste. First is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, MOEFC. So MOEFC is responsible for the proper safeguard and proper monitoring of this hazardous waste. Next is the Central Pollution Control Board, State Pollution Control Board and Pollution Control Committees. So State Pollution Control Board is there. They will care about all the hazardous waste that will be on the state level. Like that, Central Pollution Control Board will be there. They will do all the monitoring of this waste type and how much waste is producing and how to treat this type of waste. So for that, central authority is there. So this authority is called as Central Pollution Control Board. In this way, now we'll discuss about why this hazardous waste is different from normal waste. So when we see the definition of the waste, then waste means generally the substance which are not product or byproduct or which the generator has no further use for the purpose of production, transformation or consumption. So waste means any materials that is not a product or some byproduct and which is generator and then it has no further use for any purpose like some production, transportation, transformation or consumption. Next, this is called as waste. So what is hazardous waste? Hazardous waste means any waste which is having this type of characteristics like physical, chemical, biologically reactive, some toxic, flammable will be there, explosive or corrosive, and that causes danger or is likely to cause danger to health or environment, whether alone or in contact with other waste or substance. So those type of waste which are having such type of characteristics like it is having high toxic, very much toxic, flammable, explosive or corrosive, and it is causing dangers or is likely to cause the danger to the health or environment, or it may causes danger to the health or environment whether alone or whether with contact with the other waste or with some substances. So this type of waste is called as hazardous waste. So when we from this definition, hazardous waste are those waste which is having very high toxic in nature, which is infectious or sometimes which is flammable or highly explosive. So any waste that will possessing this type of characteristics is called as hazardous waste. Next is the we'll discuss about the example of this hazardous waste. So example first is like paint and solvents are there. Automotive waste like the waste used in motor oil or antifreeze. Pesticides like insecticides, herbicides and fungicides. Mercury containing waste like thermometer, some switches or fluorescent lighting will be there. So those waste which will be contain some pesticide which contain some mercury, some electronic appliances like computer, television, cell phones, Next is the aerosol or propane cylinders are there. Then caustic or caustic soda or some cleaning agent, refrigerant, cooling or containing appliances, and some special batteries like lithium battery, nickel and cadmium, or some button cell batteries, ammunition and asbestos. So this type of waste is called as hazardous waste. Some paints are there, some paints some toxic substances are there, like that in some waste that will be coming from automobiles, like some used motor oil, some antifreeze are there, so and some pesticides are there. So all these are very toxic in nature, very much toxic, and it should be treated separately. It should not be mixed with normal MSW waste. So this type of waste will be considered as hazardous waste or special waste. So its treatment is little bit different with the normal waste. So when waste is considered as hazardous waste, based on the property on that will make it very much dangerous or harmful to human health or the environment. So it can be either a solid, liquid, or some contained gases, sometimes discarded unused commercial products or discarded used material. So any waste is considered hazardous if it is going to show this type of some of the following characteristics. First is the flammable or ignitable, corrosive, toxic, reactive, or explosive. So four main characteristics are there. First one is the flammable or ignitable, and next is the corrosive, then some toxic characteristics, then reactive or explosive. So any waste that will contains this type of characteristics is considered as a hazardous waste, or it can be a liquid, solid, or some gases also. So this type of characteristics will be there in any waste that is considered as hazardous waste. So first is the flammable characteristics. So flammable liquids or mixture of liquids or liquid containing solid in solution on suspension. So for example, paint, varnish, liquids, but it will be not including the substances or waste that will be classified on account of their dangerous characteristics. So it will gives off a flammable vapor at temperature less than 60 degrees Celsius. So it gives off the flammable vapors at a temperature less than 60 degrees Celsius. It is an ignitable compressed gases. It is not a liquid and is capable under standard temperature and pressure of causing fire through the friction, absorption of moisture, or spontaneous chemical changes. So this flammable characteristics will represent that the liquid is capable of under standard temperature and pressure, and that is causing some fire through the frictions, absorption of moisture, or spontaneous chemical changes. Corrosiveness is a waste that exhibit the characteristics of corrosivity if the representative sample of the waste has either of the following properties. It is aqueous and has a pH less than or equal to 2 or greater than or equal to 12.5. Means the pH should be either it should be less than 2 or the pH will be more than 12.5. So it is a liquid and that will corrode the steel at a rate greater than 6.35 mm per year at a test temperature of 55 degrees Celsius. So it is not aqueous, and when it will be mixed with an equivalent or weight of water, it produces a solution that are having a pH less than or equal to 2 or greater than or equal to 12.5. So it is not aqueous, and when it will be mixed with the equivalent weight of water, then it is producing a solution that is having a pH that will be less than or equal to 2 or greater than or maybe equal to 12.5. So if any waste will pose this type of corrosive characteristics, that comes under the category of hazardous waste. Next is the toxic waste. So a waste exhibit the characteristics of toxicity if the concentration of the waste that constitutes list of class A and B, that will constitute list of class A and B, and they are equal to or more than the permissible limit prescribed therein. So it has an like acute oral LD50 that will be less than 2500 milligram per kg. So acute oral LD50 is less than 2500 milligram per kg, And acute dermal LD50 will be there. It will be all again less than 4300 milligrams per kilogram. So acute oral, that this will represents the dose of the waste. So the concentration of waste constitutes listed in class A or B, and they are be equal to or more than the permissible limit prescribed therein. So, reactive or explosive. A waste exhibits the characteristics of reactivity if a representative samples of the waste, it has any of the following characteristics. So, any waste can be called as reactive or explosive because of the following reason. So, any waste has the following properties, like it is normally unstable and it will radially undergoes violent changes without detonating. So this type of waste comes under the reactive or explosive characteristics. And next is that it will react violently with water or forms potentially explosive mixture with water. So it reacts violently with water. This waste will be there. That waste will react violently with water, and it maybe forms a potentially explosive mixture with the water. When it is mixed with the water, it generates toxic gases. When the waste is mixed with the water, then it is going to generate a very toxic gas or vapors or fumes in a quantity which is sufficient to present a danger to human health or the environment. So in this way, this type of waste is called as very reactive, because what happens when if it will be mixed with water, then it is going to generate a toxic gas, and that toxic gas is nothing but a vapor or fume in a quantity, in a this much of quantity that will be sufficient to present a danger. Means this type of quantity will be sufficient to present a danger to human health or the environment. So next we will do the classification of this hazardous waste. So this hazardous waste will be classified under the 4 categories. First is the radioactive waste. Next is the chemicals are there. Then some hazardous biomedical waste and some flammable waste. So on the basis of its characteristics, like TCLP, toxic character, then very high toxic, then toxic in nature, reactive in nature, very corrosive in nature, and infectious in nature. So this is called as characteristics of a hazardous waste. So radioactive substances are there. These substances are those substances that are emitting the ionizing radiation are called as radioactive. So such substances are hazardous because prolonged exposure to radiation, it will result in damage to the living organism. So substances that is emitting the ionizing radiation are radioactive, and the substances are hazardous because the prolonged exposure to radiation is results to the damage of living organisms. Next is the chemicals, because what happened, the synthetic, organic or some inorganic metals are there, salts, acid and bases, and are flammable and very explosive. Next is the biomedical waste. So the principal source of hazardous biological waste are hospital and biological research facilities. Flammable waste are the waste that may be liquid, gaseous or sometimes solid. But mostly they are like liquid, and typical example include some organic solvents, oils, some plasticizers and organic sludge will be there. So here we have discussed the 4 characteristics, 4 classification of this hazardous waste. Next is the hazardous waste management rule. So this management rule are notified to ensure the safe handling, generation, processing, treatment and packaging, storage, transportation, then the use, reprocessing, collection, conversion, and then again offering for the sale, destruction and disposal of hazardous waste. So this rule came into effect in the year 1989. In the year 1989, this hazardous waste management rule has came into effective, and they have been amended later in the year 2000, 2003 with final notification of hazardous waste. So amendment has been done in the year 2000 and 2003. 2000 and then 2003. So after 2003, it should be considered as hazardous waste management and handling and Transboundary Movement Rules 2008. Next, we will discuss about the features of this hazardous waste management and handling rules. So what is the first feature is about the any occupier of the factory will be there, and in that factory premises they are making some hazardous waste. So rule 3 will be there, and these rules mean a person who has a control over the affairs of the factory or the premises and includes in the relation to any hazardous and other waste. So the person in possession of the hazardous or other waste. So it is a responsibility of an occupier for the safe and environmentally sound management of hazardous waste management and other waste as stipulated under Rule 4 of the hazardous waste management rules. So first thing is that if a factory will be there and they are producing some hazardous waste, so it is a responsibility of the country owner, this factory owner, or the person who is generating this type of waste. So they will treat the waste in an environmentally safe manner. So it will not produce harm to the other person, or it cannot be disposed out in any other places. So this hazardous waste management rules has been made for the pollution prevention, waste minimization, and next is the 3R concepts: reuse, recycle, and recovery. Utilization including co-processing of hazardous waste in some other industries as a raw material or as a fuel substitute. So next is like a utilization, including some co-processing of hazardous waste in other industries as a raw material or as a fuel substitute. So efficient treatment and safe disposal. Next is the efficient treatment and safe disposal. Hazardous waste and other waste shall be sent or sold to an authorized actual user or disposed in an authorized disposal facility only. So this hazardous waste management rule has been formed for the pollution prevention, then the waste minimization and the 3R concept to implement the 3R concept, that is reuse, recycle, and recovery. Next is the utilization, that will include the co-processing of hazardous waste in other industries as a raw material or as a fuel substitute. Efficient treatment and safe disposal. Hazardous waste and other waste shall be sent or sold to an authorized actual user or disposed in an authorized disposal facility only. Storage requirement. So the occupier of the facilities, those who are generating the hazardous and other waste, may store for a period of not more than 90 days. So this waste cannot be stored more than 90 days and a maximum quantity of 10 tons only. Next is the small generator, like up to 10 tons per annum up to 180 days of their annual capacity. So the storage requirement for this hazardous waste will be like that. The occupier of the facilities, those who are generating the hazardous waste, they may store for a period of more than 90 days and the maximum quantity of waste should be 10 tons only. And the smaller generator, like up to 10 tons per annum, they will be up to 180 days of their annual capacity. So they cannot hold waste more than the 90 days. They have to dispose the waste within the 90 days. Okay. And the occupier and the facility generator of the hazardous waste and the other waste, they may store for a period of not more than 90 days and a maximum quantity of 10 tons. So, and then this is the picture of the labels. This is the labeling. The occupier must mark the hazardous waste containers with the labels that will be specified in Form 8, like Appendix 6 of the rules, with fluorescent yellow color background written in the red words as hazardous waste and handled with care in Hindi, English, or vernacular languages. So this labeling requirement is again a most important thing for a hazardous waste. So the occupier must mark the hazardous waste containers with a label as specified in the Form 8 of the rules with fluorescent yellow color background. So this is specified in the Form 8 of the rules with some fluorescent yellow color background written in the red words as hazardous waste or handled with care in either Hindi, English, or whatever the readable language is there for that place. Okay. Next is the accumulation and storage area. In a large establishment where a number of waste are being generated, an area is designated as a storage area that is known as Central Hazardous Waste Accumulation Area. Container must be labeled with the appropriate hazardous waste level. So there must be an appropriate signage identifying the area as hazardous waste storage or no smoking signage. So these are the care that should be take care while handling of the hazardous waste, while making one proper storage area for the hazardous waste. So in a larger establishment will be there where a number of waste are being generated. So a big establishment area is there where lots of numbers of waste has been generated. So this type of area is designed as a storage area, and that is known as Central Hazardous Waste Accumulation Area. The container must be labeled with the appropriate hazardous waste level. There must be some signage identifying the area as hazardous waste storage and non-smoking signage. Next, we'll discuss about the Basel Convention. Basel Convention is a convention that has been made on a control of transboundary movement of hazardous waste and its disposal in the year 1989. So, Conference of Parties of Basel Agreement is like 2006 to regulate the e-waste movement. So, they have made one Basel Convention for this regulation of this e-waste movement, and the e-waste export to the developing countries is governed by some brute global economics. So, e-waste export to the developing countries is mostly governed by some brute global economics. Low enforcement of environmental and occupation regulation and low labor cost. So this is about the Basel Convention. This Basel Convention has been made for some rules has been made for the movement of transboundary movement of the hazardous waste and its final disposal, that is year 1989. So Conference of Parties of the Basel Agreement, that is 2006, to regulate the e-waste movement, and this e-waste export to the developing countries is governed by the local brute global economics. Low enforcement of environmental and occupational regulation is there, and then low labor cost. So they have made one meeting that will undertook to eliminate two toxic chemical groups, dicophol and perfluorotectonic acids plus some related compounds. Then later they have been used in a wide variety of industrial and domestic applications that will including some non-stick cookware and food processing equipments, as well as carpets, paper and paints. So they made rules on this type of waste and that will be considered under the Basel Convention. So what is the conclusion? Like we have discussed, like the many hazardous waste are there. These hazardous waste create an immediate health hazard to anyone who may come in contact with them. So this can be a chemical byproduct or a contaminated solid or anything in between. So proper and swift disposal is a must, and hazardous waste can cause harm to the environment as well. Improper disposal of hazardous waste can even affect human via drinking water or food consumption. So that's why this handling, proper management of this hazardous waste is very much important, because this hazardous waste is either very toxic in nature, or they are very much corrosive, or sometimes they are infectious also. So that the rules has been made different for this hazardous waste management and handling when we compare it with the municipal solid waste handling rules. So this hazardous waste should be properly care, and its storage requirement, its storage labeling requirement, all should be done with a proper caring and everything. Then only we can dispose this hazardous waste. Otherwise this hazardous waste is very much dangerous, and it cannot be treated like the normal waste, because it is infectious also. It is causing damage to the people. It is causing some radioactive substances are there. So these are the very much negative effect are there for this hazardous waste. So at this point, I'm concluding my lecture. If you have any query regarding this lecture, you can write in the comment box, or you can directly mail me onto my given mail ID, shikha.pandey@gmail.com, or you can write me in the mail ID. And as for now, this in this lecture, I have discussed about the hazardous waste, hazardous characteristics, why some waste is categorized as hazardous waste, and what are the disposal practices for this hazardous waste, and what this hazardous waste management and handling rules. What rules has been made for this hazardous waste handling? Okay, so thank you for today's lecture.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.